This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A Winnipeg man is now facing terrorism-related charges. It comes after the 19-year-old was already charged with spray painting anti-Semitic graffiti on buildings, fences, and other objects. The CBC's Alana Cole has the latest.
19-year-old Nevin Thunder Young has been charged with facilitating terrorist activity, participation in activity of a terrorist group, and commission of an offense for a terrorist group. RCMP say they started investigating last month after receiving information from Winnipeg police. The Winnipeg man was arrested yesterday and was scheduled to appear in court today. Now, we are still working to try to find out more about these charges. For now, what we can say is that in January, Winnipeg police announced Nevin Thunder Young was charged with 26 counts of mischief under $5,000. That was related to anti-Semitic graffiti in the Charleswood area between September 28th and December 31st of last year. Now, here's what police had to say then about their investigation.
We did execute a search warrant on the residence. So we gathered evidence that we are going to have to now have a close look at. And I think there's larger questions to be answered.
Winnipeg police wouldn't comment today on why they contacted RCMP. The RCMP declined an interview. They say this is an ongoing investigation and aren't releasing further details. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg homeowners won't get any relief this year on the city's proposed garbage fee increase. The costs for many city services are going up. City officials say earlier this month they would try to find a way to reduce the hike. But CBC's Cameron McLean reports those efforts ultimately came to nothing.
The city is changing the way it bills for garbage collection. It's rolling fees for garbage, recycling, and yard waste into a new solid waste utility fee. Going into effect April 1st, it means homeowners can expect garbage fees in 2025 to more than double, from $93 to $190. Earlier this month, Mayor Scott Gillingham and Water and Waste Chair Ross Eady said they would look for ways to soften the blow, possibly by stretching the increase out over a number of years. But today, the Executive Policy Committee approved the increase city staff proposed.
We looked at it. We worked with our department for several days. They looked at different ways that maybe things could be done. At the end of the day, what we've discovered is that any savings would be very negligible.
Garbage collection isn't the only thing Winnipeggers will pay more for this year. The city approved a 5.95% property tax increase, worth about $121 for the average homeowner. And the water and sewer bill for the typical homeowner will go up around $168. Along with the increased garbage fee, the city portion on tax bills will go up $386 on average. But that's not the only increase Winnipeggers are facing. Gillingham says school divisions are also looking at significant increases.
So we are going to make sure as the City of Winnipeg we're communicating clearly to residents what portion is education taxes, which are not the City of Winnipeg's, and which portion is the municipal taxes.
Edie wants the city to look at ways of adjusting the fees based on household income.
The department or utility is coming up with programs that won't really help everybody. It'll be desperate people in desperate times.
The fees still need final approval from council. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
So Winnipeg homeowners can expect to get hit multiple times next year, not only with those hundreds of dollars in increases from the city, but also you will pay more in education property taxes. But how much? Well, that depends. CBC's Ian Fraze joins us live in the newsroom this evening. So Ian, what's happening with school taxes?
They're going up, and in some cases by a lot. On Tuesday, City Council looked through the numbers crunched by their staff. Let's break that down. Now, mostly it is double-digit increases, as you can see here in and around Winnipeg. At the Winnipeg School Division, it's 15%. Louis Riel School Division is at the high end at 16.6%. Now, despite all this, the impact to your property tax bill will vary based on a few factors, like the assessed value of your home and major changes to a provincial tax credit that favors the owners of less expensive properties. Now, the PCs say these high tax increases are proof the education system is underfunded. Finance critic Lauren Stone says the NDP needs to step up.
As property assessments increase, taxes increase. By allowing school divisions to hike taxes this aggressively, the NDP are adding more homes into paying higher taxes. Right. There are going to be many middle-class Winnipeggers and Manitobans that are going to be paying significantly more as a result.
Now, the NDP fired back, saying there's been 7 years of chronic underfunding to the education system under the former PC government.
All right, Ian, meanwhile, it is by-election day today in Transcona. 4 people are vying to represent the East Winnipeg constituency. So what prompted this by-election?
A vacancy for that seat. It was owned beforehand by former NDP MLA Nello Altamar, who died of cancer in January. The former school principal served as an education minister in Canu's government. Now, the NDP is betting on another educator to take over, Shannon Corbett. She's been a vice principal in the area. Former city councillor Sean Nason is running for the PCs. He served the Transcona ward for 1 term beginning in 2018. Federal public servant Brad Boudreau is running for the Liberals, and former Olympic speed skater Susan Auck is running as an independent. Voting closes at 8 p.m. Brittany.
All right, thank you, Ian. That's CBC's Ian Fraze this evening. Now we're getting a clearer picture of the travel trends of Canadians and Manitobans amid the trade war with the U.S. New numbers show fewer people are heading south of the border. And with spring break right around the corner, CBC's Josh Crabb looks into what that could mean here at home.
U.S. border crossings aren't as busy as they used to be. Manitobans Cheryl and Rudy Giesbrecht are canceling their annual trip into Minnesota, and they're not shy about saying why.
Mr. Trump and his tariffs and his attitudes towards Canada. Don't want to support them in any way, shape, or form.
The data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection shows more than 142,000 travelers from bordering provinces, including Manitoba, crossed into North Dakota and Minnesota in a vehicle in February of last year. This February, about 26,000 fewer people made the trip, with the number of travelers falling to just over 116,000.
I think we just need to take a stand and say that we just don't agree with the way he's treating us as a country.
I don't think my husband or I are comfortable at all with the idea of traveling south at this point in time.
Joanne Vanderhorst was hoping to take a road trip along the U.S. West Coast in a camper van, but plans are on hold.
We are not happy with the tariffs being imposed on us. I think we just have to be Canadian. We have to support Canadian.
There are also fewer people living in the United States traveling to this country. According to Stats Canada, there was a 7.9% decline from February 2024 compared to February of this year. Travel Manitoba's president and CEO Colin Ferguson says the tourism industry is working to keep Americans coming. They're also trying to convince Canadians to spend spring break here to boost travel numbers in the province.
Their travel plans have changed, so they're looking for other locations. So we see that there could be a bit of an uptake.
We're actually talking about exploring lots of areas of Manitoba that we haven't really done.
We'll find stuff to do. We'll stay local.
One sector that may see some benefits during an uncertain time. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A community leader accused of sexual assault last year is no longer facing the charge. Haji Hesso is the executive director of the Yazidi Association of Manitoba. He's agreed to a peace bond for the next 18 months, barring him from contacting the woman who accused him. He must also stay at least 100 meters away from her home, work, and place of worship. Hesso was arrested in November after allegedly uttering a threat toward the woman and breaking conditions to not communicate with her. All charges have been stayed as a result of the peace bond.
Well, time for a first check on your weather now. Mainly cloudy skies across the Red River Valley today and really across much of the south. A couple of things going on. First, we have high pressure in northern Manitoba that's tried really hard to clear us out today, but it's been competing with a bit of instability south of the border. That's kept us sandwiched into some of this cloud cover throughout the day today. A bit brighter, though, the further east you go into northwestern Ontario. I do think we'll start to see a bit more clearing going as we get through the evening hours tonight. -7, north winds dying off to 10 by the time we get to the morning, -6. First thing in the morning, a partly cloudy sky, and we're looking at, I think, a bit of a brighter day as we head into your Wednesday, the final day of winter before we start to get into spring, +2 tomorrow afternoon. We'll talk about that spring forecast when I come back.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, if you're looking for Canadian-grown produce on store shelves, you might be out of luck when it comes to certain items. Why sourcing local could be a problem. We'll touch on that next. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us. Well, many Canadians have been scouring store shelves looking to pick up produce and goods grown and made locally. But you might be coming across a wrinkle in your plan to boycott U.S. produce. Some Canadian veggies are scarce on store shelves and might not be available for months. The CBC's Felicia Adam tells us why.
For Manitobans looking to buy only Canadian in grocery stores, it might be getting harder to find vegetables grown in Canada. And for produce like carrots, you might be out of luck. Brenda Niziol is leaving Walmart empty-handed, and it's not the first time.
Over the last week or so, it has happened several times, and I'm okay with going somewhere else to shop local.
Brown Neziel owns a daycare and has a family of 5. It means she normally buys in bulk, but doing that while shopping only Canadian is getting harder.
I can't buy bulk carrots because bulk carrots are not locally grown that you can buy at the stores.
Peak of the Market supplies vegetables to all grocery chains in Manitoba.
The only vegetables that you'll find that can be supplied all year round in Canada from Canadians is potatoes.
Pamela Kolachuk says the last crops of carrots in Canada are harvested in the fall and then put into cold storage. After that, their shelf life lasts until the end of March. That's when stores bring in produce from the U.S. or Mexico. So while there are Canadian-grown carrots in some stores, they're running out.
They're going to have to buy Mexican carrots instead of American if they really feel that strongly.
Kolachuk says other vegetables from Canada that might be hard to find until July include cabbage, beets, parsnips, rutabagas, and turnips. Joe Massey was shopping at Superstore.
Certain things are needed that just aren't produced in Canada, so we have to buy them. Everything is Canadian.
Massey says he does his best to only buy Canadian, but for him, it's more important that he doesn't buy U.S. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Manitoba government plans to expand the province's Human Rights Code to cover gender expression. The code already prohibits discrimination based on gender identity. The change will cover preferred pronouns and outward appearances such as clothing. The proposed change is part of a bill now before the legislature and will be debated later this year. The government is also looking to set new rules for drivers to keep a certain distance away from snowplows, tow trucks, and cyclists. That bill before the legislature would require drivers to follow at least 30 meters behind a snowplow on most roads and 100 meters on roads with a speed limit of more than 80 kilometers an hour. The bill would also require drivers to maintain a distance of at least 1 meter while passing cyclists, while the current law only mentions an unspecified safe distance. The 1 meter rule would bring Manitoba in line with provinces such as Ontario. Canada's annual inflation rate jumped up to 2.6% in February. It's the highest in 8 months. And in Manitoba, inflation went from 2.7% in January up to 3.5% last month. And as CBC's Nisha Patel reports, more increases could be on the way.
The end of the sales tax holiday last month helped push prices higher for goods like children's toys and books, alcohol and meals at restaurants. Canadians also paid more to go on holiday, as strong demand pushed up the cost of travel tours by almost 19%. So inflation in Canada came in hotter than expected in February, 2.6%, up sharply from 1.9% the month before.
Our eyebrows are raised because we were looking at this. We're like, okay, how sustainable is this? This is the question we have. Is this going to be something that's going to persist?
And there could be more inflation in the months ahead as the trade war between Canada and the United States drags on. Retaliatory tariffs and a lower loonie could push prices here higher. Economists say that puts the Bank of Canada in a tricky position. Policymakers need to weigh holding interest rates steady to keep inflation in check or cutting rates to boost the economy.
The big issue for the Bank of Canada is that tariffs in and of themselves is a big growth shock to Canada. And we wonder how much more insurance the Bank of Canada wants to take out to protect against the downside potential of tariffs.
There are other moving parts for the central bank to consider, including the removal of the consumer carbon tax. and the possibility of a fresh round of U.S. tariffs at the beginning of April. The Bank of Canada has cut the key interest rate 7 times over the past year, from 5% down to 2.75%. Now economists are divided whether the bank will pause or cut again at its interest rate meeting next month. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
And Riley's back in now. I hope people got a chance to get outside today.
Yes.
I snuck in a couple walks. Really nice day outside for that, in comparison to what we saw in some of that roller coaster weather. But it's definitely starting to feel more spring-like out there.
Yeah, we have we're going to start spring jumping over a bit of a hurdle.
Okay.
not precipitation-wise, but temperature-wise. We're diving down a little bit before we start to get back up into more of that spring weather. So,
but we are starting to see that ice melt on the sidewalks in some cases. It is still a little slippery out there, so you got to be careful.
We're
but
still going through the freeze thaw.
Not too bad right now.
No, not at all. Could be worse, right?
Could be so much worse.
I want to start big picture here with your upper level winds. A few things going on today, which is kind of what kept us under the cloud cover for part of the day, at least here in southern Manitoba. So first off, you have this area of low pressure stubbornly stuck over the northern part of Hudson Bay. You might recognize this one. This is the one that brought all of that snow to northern Manitoba last week, and combined with that one that brought some freezing rain to northwestern Ontario. It's still stuck here and still having an effect on our weather, spinning down some of this cold Arctic air into the northern prairies. That's what's cooled temperatures down for much of us throughout the day today. Further south, the jet stream bringing another round of precipitation to the Dakotas into Minnesota. And what that has done is spun up some cloud cover into southern Manitoba. And both of those systems competing with a little bit of high pressure couldn't quite do it, couldn't quite clear us out as early as I thought throughout the day today. So mostly cloudy skies. We have started to get some clearing going, and we'll get some clearing going through the overnight hours tonight. Still waking up to a partly cloudy sky through the morning hours. And anytime you see some of this cloud cover, there is the slight chance that we'll see a couple of flurries out of this. So we are looking at mostly sunny skies by the time we get to the afternoon, I think, as high pressure does start to take hold. But out of some of this cloud cover, maybe you pick up a dusting of snow through the afternoon hours tomorrow, particularly through the Parkland, even as far north, I think, as the Pas, Grand Rapids, picking up a little bit of snow throughout the daytime for Wednesday. As we get into Thursday, another day where we just kind of rinse and repeat a mix of sun and clouds. A little bit more cloud starts to build in ahead of another weak low that pushes across central Manitoba, bringing some snow again. Really not much in the way of accumulation per se, but certainly bringing at least a dusting Thursday to parts of northern Manitoba. Here's how that looks on the forecast modeling. Really, the Pas, Grand Rapids into Norway House picking up maybe a couple, 3 centimeters of snow on the top end. The rest of us, though, trace to really nothing at all over the next couple of days. So entering a more stable pattern for really the rest of the work week before we get into the long-range forecast. Waking up above seasonal for the Red River Valley and east, -6 first thing in the morning for Winnipeg, but -10s, -12s back into Westman. And you can see where we still do have some of that colder air taking hold into northern Manitoba, starting the day in the -20s once again tomorrow. So +2 by the afternoon. We start spring at +4 with a bit of cloud building in, and then our next chance, Brittany, for some precipitation comes in the form of rain on Sunday.
Okay, thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, like we said, not a bad day to get outside for a bike ride even. We have more to come right after this. Stay with us.
Every corner of Canada deserves a voice. Local news connects us from coast to coast to coast. CBC is expanding local news locations all over the country, and we're looking for storytellers. Help us tell your story and make a difference in your community. Visit cbc.ca/workwithus to apply today.
Winkler and Morden, let's get to know each other a little bit better. CBC's Communities in Focus is coming to your communities March 17th to 21st. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
Mark Carney is back from his first trip abroad as Prime Minister, but he's capping off his travel to France and the UK with a visit to Canada's north, where he announced a deal with Australia to build an early warning system in the Arctic. But Carney's immediate political challenges stem from the south. The CBC's Rosemary Barton has more.
At a time when Canadians have become increasingly concerned about sovereignty, Canada's new Prime Minister went north of 60 to shore up Arctic security.
The world is changing. Our adversaries are increasingly emboldened. Canada must be strong in our partnerships, particularly NORAD, and today's announcements will strengthen our commitment to NORAD. Well, that is true. We cannot and should not look first to others to defend our nation.
Among those threatening the North, Russia and China, and an American neighbor that is increasingly aligned with those very nations. The modernization of NORAD was already promised by the Liberal government, but in this last leg of his trip, Mark Carney confirmed a $6 billion partnership with Australia to develop and install a new radar detection system. The money is part of the previous announcement of billions. The need to improve NORAD has been an ongoing criticism from the U.S. There is hope this will help.
Securing Canada is an absolute strategic priority of this government. We will need to do more. We will do it deliberately. We will do it in a way that gets effective value for money, that delivers true security.
There is also a plan to expand Canadian Armed Forces operations in different locations in the north, and money towards upgrading power plants and improving housing.
Canada's national identity as an Arctic nation was built on the backs of our communities. The Arctic plays a strategic geopolitical role. We are Canada's gateway to the Northwest Passage.
A signal the sustainability of the North is also key to diversifying trade in a changing world.
For New Democrats, investing in defense means investing in people.
In recent weeks, leaders of other parties have been north to make promises about Canada's security.
Our safety, territory, and trade with the U.S. requires we take back control of our north.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre promised to build a new base in Iqaluit by cutting foreign aid, but was criticized for not consulting with Indigenous people first. Of course, this is also about Donald Trump ahead of the Prime Minister's first call with the President. When that will happen still has to be confirmed, but Carney warns Canadians it is not one meeting that will solve all of the current challenges. Rosemary Barton, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The new Prime Minister is eliminating the consumer carbon tax. After being sworn in on Friday, Mark Carney signed a prime ministerial directive instructing that the fuel charge be removed effective April 1st. It's a move Carney says would make a difference to Canadians who are struggling to make ends meet. But some experts say it won't translate to savings at the grocery store. Sylvain Charlebois is a Canadian professor and researcher of food distribution and policy at Dalhousie University and joins me now. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, Sylvain, will this stop food prices from rising?
No. The short answer is no. The issue here is that the carbon tax was not eliminated. What we're talking about is the so-called consumer carbon tax. And so for some elements of our economy, you'll see probably some differences at the pump maybe. Where prices will drop. But when it comes to food prices, the biggest challenge with the carbon tax is how the effect of the tax compounds throughout the supply chain from farmers to retail. And that has not been impacted at all with this new approach.
Okay, so maybe you can just take me through that a little bit. How does the carbon tax impact the cost of food right now along each step to when we finally pick it up at the grocery store?
Well, let's say a farmer actually spends $100,000 to operate his farm. Well, let's say that there's a tax applied on that. The farmer would probably get a rebate, or there are caveats to allow the farmer not to pay for that tax, but he still has to charge more. And there's a GST that applies on that tax as well. So that goes up to processing. Same thing happens there, and so on and so forth. So the $100,000 at Farmgate becomes $180,000 essentially. So wholesale prices, not retail, but wholesale prices are impacted by the policy. And so that's why we're seeing more pressure put on retail prices. And those are prices that we're seeing at the grocery store. So basically what it means for all of us is that the agri-food sector in Canada has become less competitive. And so grocers who are trying to keep prices as low as possible are kind of forced to import more food from abroad because food in Canada that is being produced is no longer as competitive.
Okay, well, right now we're also seeing a big push to buy Canadian because of those tariffs. Everyone's feeling a bit patriotic right now. Is that also going to have an impact at the stores? Will that drive prices up or down? What is that going to do?
Well, I don't know what's happening where you are, but in most parts of the country, we're seeing this complete de-Americanization of the grocery store, especially in central Canada, where a lot of people are just not buying American products, even if they're cheaper and if they are on sale. And so we're seeing new products from South Africa, Turkey, Chile, Mexico, Peru even. And so there are more countries playing a part, basically keeping prices as low as possible. Of course, there are Canadian options, but sometimes Canadian options are not as cheap. And so that's why grocers are actually importing from other sources right now.
I know here in the prairies we have those bitter cold winters, so we have some struggles when it comes to growing opportunities.
Right.
What would it take to start to see prices to come down? What would we have to do?
Not much. I mean, we saw the CPI report today coming from Statistics Canada. We're seeing food inflation becoming an issue again. It's actually close to 2%. Now it jumped almost 1% in a month. So the GST holiday has come to an end. So we are expecting a bumpy March and April, unfortunately, because when you actually import food from outside the U.S., it will cost us more. And right now we're seeing a lot of prices being adjusted as a result. So unfortunately, you have to look for more deals, shop around, and Canadians have actually been way more aggressive discounting the last couple of years.
All right. Sylvain, thank you so much for your time.
Take care.
Russia's Vladimir Putin has agreed to a partial ceasefire after a call with U.S. President Donald Trump. But it falls short of the U.S. proposal that Ukraine agreed to last week. And as Chris Brown reports, the limited pause may benefit Moscow more than Kyiv.
Speaking to Russian oligarchs, Vladimir Putin set the stage for his phone call with Donald Trump, warning foreign businesses in uncompromising language they'll have to play by his rules. His message to Trump later about Ukraine sounded much the same. Putin said no to an immediate 30-day ceasefire, which Ukraine has already agreed to and Trump pushed for. Instead, Putin offered a truce that only applies to air attacks on energy and infrastructure targets. A big benefit to him, as Ukraine has been using drones and new long-range missiles to hit Russian oil and gas centers.
So the goal of Putin, and it's very obvious to me, within these 30 days, to strengthen Russia and to weaken Ukraine.
This Ukrainian MP says Putin is simply stalling for time while keeping Trump on side.
I think what Putin has done, he has prepared a trap for Trump. Because, Putin continues to insist on such additional and totally unacceptable demands for Ukraine as to stop mobilization and to stop providing to Ukraine weaponry.
Russia and Ukraine did agree to exchange prisoners, 175 each, and return some wounded Ukrainian soldiers. In a social media post, Trump said the call was productive. Many elements of a contract for peace were discussed, including the fact that thousands of soldiers are being killed, and both President Putin and President Zelensky would like to see the end of it. All of these talks happened over the head of Ukraine's president, who's visiting Finland. Vladimir Zelensky said Putin is clearly not ready to end the war. Both leaders will likely claim a win. Trump that negotiations will continue soon, likely somewhere in the Middle East, and Putin that Trump remains engaged while Russia's armies continue to pound Ukraine on the battlefield. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
In the Middle East, a shattering break in the 2-month-old ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Overnight, Israeli airstrikes have left hundreds of people dead across Gaza. Egypt and Kuwait are calling Israel's attacks a gross violation of international law and the ceasefire deal. Gaza's health ministry says the strikes killed more than 400 people, many of them women and children. Israeli officials say the operation is open-ended and expected to expand. The collapse of the ceasefire comes after Israel vowed to use force to free its remaining hostages in Gaza. Many fear that also means a resumption of the Israeli ground offensive. From wall to wall to wall, this Winnipegger's music collection is a sight to see and hear. We'll take you inside his unique home after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us. Music has a way of transporting people. It helps to connect our memories. But one Winnipeg record collector has taken the love of music to an entirely new level. His collection is so large, both it and him now live in a warehouse filled to the brim. Filmmaking students in the CREATE program at Sisler High School show us how a life-changing event left him rethinking his passion.
I've had this realization in the last while. It's like time travel is kind of real, in your mind, that is. I can put on that record and I can remember where I was when I first heard it and those experiences I had when I first heard a lot of that music. The first real LP that I got was that Beatles Hey Jude record, yeah. Yeah. Even got my mom's name written on it. I remember being around 12 years old is when I really started collecting more, because I remember going downtown and it was really cool being in these stores too. Here they are, they're playing the music, and then again, all this beautiful vinyl all around, and I was kind of in awe. Most of this wall is records, and then I got CDs in front. I live in a warehouse, and I would travel a lot, and I would collect records and stuff and collect music, and they would just end up in some of these storage lockers. But then when I finally found this one space I'm in, it's like, great, I can have everything in one spot. I almost sort of consider my place almost like a bit of a museum, really, because it's wall-to-wall collections in every room. The main living area is 14 by 14. The left wall is all records, the right wall is all records, the front wall is all CDs, and we're talking about 12-foot high ceilings, so I'm surrounded by it, yeah.
I'll be your mirror.
I got to meet Lou Reed in the late 90s. I went to see his concert at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, waited by the stage door, and he shows up, and I had a handful of Lou Reed CDs. I was the first one in his face, and I said, "Hey Lou, looking forward to the show, and would you mind signing these?" And he just kind of groaned because he saw the big stack, and he said, "Wait." And he went and signed everyone else's one piece that they had, and then he came back to me, and he said, "Okay, here." And he signed every single one of them.
One song. I shop at Doug's booth because he's got an assortment of things you really can't find in many places these days. Nostalgia hunters and people who just want to explore bits of historical pop culture. His stuff is top-notch.
Shortly after I moved into that warehouse, I had some major car accidents, 2 within 2 months, and I could not walk for a while. And my life kind of really changed, and you really rethink everything. And I'm thinking, wow, if that was fatal, my family would have had to deal with my whole collection, and where would it have ended up, kind of thing. And now I have another one, and another one, and yeah. Now I'm realizing, holy smokes, I got doubles, I got triples of some things. So this is a great outlet to get rid of all my doubles and to share music. See, to me, music, I'm very passionate about music, love it. Knowing that some of my really valuable to me stuff will go to a great home and where someone will appreciate it, you know, kind of thing. I love that idea.
I just want to know how he finds everything.
Yes.
If it's categorized or if he just knows.
A lot more than the CD tower about this high my parents had in their house, which I'm sure they probably still do somewhere.
Well, he doesn't need to cozy up in there much longer with these spring-like temperatures. He can get out, maybe take that music with him on a walk and get outside.
Yeah, exactly. I have a treat for you.
Oh, I do love treats.
Okay, so take a look at this for our dog walking forecast tonight. Not a dog, but a bird.
Oh!
Just in time for spring. This is Peppy, who is, by the way, 20 years old. Get that. Thank you, Monica, for sending this picture in. Isn't that something? Talkback at cbc.ca is where you can send your pictures to. It'd be a nice day to let the birds out tomorrow. -6 first thing in the morning, but by the afternoon, we'll get to +2. Northwest winds, I mean, maybe they're gusting up to 30, but it will make it feel slightly cooler than that +2, I think, with a bit of a breeze out there. +2 by the evening as well. And we're looking at temperatures warming up as we get into the next couple of days before we drop off for the weekend. I wanted to quickly show you how we've been doing precipitation-wise over the course of the winter months. So this takes us from the 1st of November to this week. And you can see actually most of southern Manitoba in these brown colors, which is about 50 to 70% of our normal precipitation for this time of the year. So the stable weather that we've had hasn't necessarily been a good thing for our soil here in southern Manitoba. Parts of the Interlake, though, seeing a bit more healthy in terms of precipitation over the past couple of months. So just gives you a bit of a benchmark of where we're at going into spring here. Down to -1 right now in Winnipeg, -2s, -5s to the west. Thompson at -9 at the moment. Considerable cloud cover hanging on for the most part as we get into the overnight hours tonight across southern Manitoba. Temperatures around -10, which is actually pretty seasonal for this time of the year, for southern Manitoba at least. -5s into Morden, Winkler, Emerson, -9s and -8s into northwestern Ontario as well. Peg was looking at -11 overnight tonight. A bit of clearing. Maybe some flurries overnight in the Pas, -17, -21 in Thompson, -22 in Churchill, which has been seeing some very gusty northerly winds that will continue as we get into Wednesday from that low over Hudson Bay. So a couple of flurries make their way through as we get into Wednesday. -2s by the afternoon for Grand Rapids, into the Pas, Norway House at -3. Into southern Manitoba, looking at high temperatures tomorrow, above freezing. Maybe we get a bit of melting, but not a lot. Maybe a couple of flurries in the Parkland, namely for Swan River down into the northern Interlake. For Peguis, for Gimli, +1 tomorrow afternoon. In Brittany, northwestern Ontario, also looking at temperatures around the freezing mark for your Wednesday.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, this year's Juno Awards will take place in Vancouver on March 30th, and a high school teacher from Ottawa will be sharing the red carpet and the spotlight with music stars that night. Sandra Abma has the story.
1, 2, 1, 2, ready, here we go.
It's an explosion of percussion, drums, marimbas and xylophones wailing up and down the scales, as young hands and feet dig into making a big sound at Nepean High School.
Yeah, more, dig.
All eyes and ears are on veteran music teacher Jeannie Hunter, chief cheerleader, mentor, and a firm believer in the power of music to improve lives.
Everybody has music in them, and if they don't know that yet, they just haven't found the right instrument or the right teacher. That music is for everyone. Being a musician makes you a better human, and that's part of a cyclical process. So the musicians I work with are some of the best humans I know.
As a teacher, she's led school bands to multiple award-winning performances. Last year, Nepean High School's rendition of A Little Bit Happy took second place in CBC's Canadian Music Class Challenge. This year, it's Hunter who's been singled out with a Juno nomination for Music Teacher of the Year.
It's an amazing job. It's a chance to connect with kids in a way that you can't necessarily do in other subjects, and I get to work with them for multiple years, so it really builds community. So to have that recognized is very special.
And the kids in the band couldn't be more proud.
Ms. Hunter is the best kind of teacher. I don't think I could imagine any teacher who's better at what she does because she has so much passion.
Ms. Hunter's magical. Honestly, she's like, I don't want to sound crazy and be like, yeah, my teacher's my best friend, but like, she's honestly like, she feels like one of my best friends, if anything. Like,
she's like the best music teacher I've ever had, which is quite a lot because I've had lots of different like private teachers and stuff like that, but playing the violin too, so.
Here you are at Nepean High School, and you found the absolute gem.
Yeah, exactly.
The 2025 Juno Awards will be handed out on Sunday, March 30th. But it's clear Hunter is already a winner to her music students. What do you think? Juno night, are you going to be watching?
Yes!
Sandra Abma, CBC News, Ottawa.
After being stuck on the International Space Station for more than 9 months, 2 NASA astronauts have finally returned back to Earth.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
That's the SpaceX capsule with Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams splashing down off the Florida coast after leaving the space station nearly 6 hours before. When they left Earth on June 5th, it was meant to be a test flight for about a week. But their new Boeing Starliner crew capsule ended up having several issues once they reached the ISS, and a return flight on that capsule was deemed too risky. The pair spent the long stay helping the onboard crew with experiments and station maintenance. Still ahead, it's a bumpy ride outside. Pothole season is in full swing, but where is it worst? Plus, Riley Lachuk is back with our last check on our forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Manitobans can now cast their votes in this year's Worst Roads campaign. From potholes to crumbling pavement, the annual campaign gives people the chance to nominate roads they think need the most help. Last year, 18th Street in Brandon topped the list. This led to the province spending more than $10 million to resurface it. Manitobans can submit their votes now until April 11th.
And not likely to get any better anytime soon with that freeze thaw we've been happening. Well, you know what? Over the next couple of days at least, I think we'll start to get into a little bit of that thaw. So we're looking at 2 degrees for your Wednesday in Winnipeg. I'd say cloud cover about 50-50 by the time we get to the afternoon hours. So minimal snow melt. I know it probably doesn't look like this in your yard right now. Maybe further north outside the city, but yeah, do expect over the next couple days we do get a little bit of melting happening, and that's going to be freezing at night again because our overnight temperatures by the weekend -11 and -12 once again. So up to 4 degrees for the start of spring on Thursday. Friday dipping a bit, -7, -4, a bit of a northwesterly flow will cool our temperatures down toward the weekend. And then we pop back up by the time we get into next week, 3s and 5s by the time we get to Monday and Tuesday. Well, 7 years, 4 months, if you're counting, 2,675 days. That is how long since one Ontario cat owner last saw her pet.
Julio's owner had lost hope of ever seeing him again, but his grand comeback is our daily lift.
Concerned resident brought in this tabby cat, a male, because they saw him on the street and he looked really thin and walking not well, and so they were concerned, so they brought him in, and our staff immediately microchipped him to see what they found, and sure enough, there was a microchip. To the surprise of the person that brought him in, we could tell right away that the animal needed some TLC, needed some medical attention, but we first wanted to make sure we contacted who was registered the owner, and we got a hold of her right away, and she was shocked because she lost the cat 7 years ago. I think she was like an utter moment of silence, like, are you sure? There's no way, there's no way. And she came in and it was her cat Julio. What a reunion that was. She had all but given up hope. She says he is just lapping up all the attention and really kind of exploring around and trying to feel comfortable in his environment.
Oh, the things Julio has seen.
The smile, the look on his face. How can you not love that?
Julio needs a cat nap. We'll say goodbye and we'll see you back here tomorrow.